Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and delighted to have back with us today. It's been a while, but look forward to it. Scott Jorgensen, he is a legislative staffer up there, an author and former reporter, and kind of our eyes and ears on the scene at the state capitol in Salem as they are in session. And Scott, what a delight to see you, my friend. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks.
To say the least. Well, first of all, before we get into all of the former Governor Kitzhaber thing, what's the atmosphere in the building now? Is it settling down? I mean, we have a new governor. Is the session progressing, or is it still kind of mulling around a little bit?
No, it's been a lot more productive around here because there are a lot fewer distractions because of kind of the finality of it. And this is by no means over, but it's definitely back to business as usual around here, much more so than it's been since the start of the session.
All right. Well, we've heard now that the feds are involved in the investigation of the former governor, and I can't help but think that this is pretty riveting. What's the feeling going on up there? What are you hearing?
Well, and what I have right here, this is a copy of the subpoena that was issued by federal officials, and people can access this. All you have to do is Google search Kitzhaber subpoena. And it's pretty sweeping. I mean, I'll name some of the entities that are listed on here: Demos, Resource Media, Energy Foundation, Clean Energy Development Center, and there's any number of agencies listed here as well: Department of Administrative Services, Department of Energy, Department of Environmental Quality, Department of State Lands, Oregon Department of Revenue. And what I'd really like folks to understand is that low carbon fuel standards is mentioned word for word in here. And all you have to do is go and Google Kitzhaber subpoena. You will find the document. Several media outlets have it. They're trying to pass legislation that's mentioned directly and specifically in a federal subpoena. All
right. Now, you would think that President Courtney and Speaker Kotek would say, wait a minute, we better push the pause button on this, because they could be implicated if they go through with it, wouldn't they?
Well, I don't know the ramifications of that, but the thing is that there, from the start of the session and even prior to the session, was a push for a transportation package because we have a lot of infrastructure needs throughout the state. Right. And the House Republicans and the Senate Republicans have been very clear from the beginning that if you pass low carbon fuel standards, you are going to compromise the passage of a transportation package. And there had been some discussions going on, but it looks like that isn't moving forward. And it's unfortunate because we do have so many needs that must be met. And there are a lot of business interests throughout the state who have been supportive of that and who would support an increase in the gas tax. But we're already starting to see the price of gas rise again from where it was even a couple of weeks ago. And we're nowhere near the peak driving season. So you can imagine what that's going to look like come Memorial Day. Yeah. And then you start adding more on top of that between the low carbon fuel standards and the cost of compliance for traditional fuel suppliers and a gas tax on top of that. And we're trying to look out for working Oregonians.
Well, a key point to this, though, Scott, a key point to this is that this piece of legislation really is a result of the scandal. And it has Sylvia Hayes' fingerprints all over it, plus the former governor. I mean, this is a central part of the scandal.
Well, yeah, and it's all right here in the federal subpoena. Yeah. Like I said, I would urge folks to look at this. You can find this online and look for it. It's mentioned word for word in here.
All right. So how's the new governor settling in, Kate Brown? And where is she on some of the issues that concern you?
Well, there's not going to be a whole lot of difference policy-wise between she and Governor Kitzhaber. And it's not like there's a lot of bills that she would veto that he would have signed or vice versa. And, you know, I work in the Senate, and she had spent a lot of time serving in the Senate. And so a lot of the senior members of the Senate, especially on the Republican side, have known her for a while. For example, she's off to a good start with our office in particular, because when she was still Secretary of State, we had talked to her about a bill that's going to help one of your listeners and constituents down there, Senate Bill 161. And she had promised that she would help move it. And within 24 hours of her being sworn in as governor, there was a public hearing and work session on it. Wow. So that's already happening. What's interesting is that she has appointed the guy who was her deputy when she was Secretary of State as kind of an interim to head up the Secretary of State's office. And she's said that next week she will make her decision on who to appoint to that. And there's a lot of different dynamics and moving parts involved there.
You know, there's a part of this I want our listeners and viewers to understand. It's possible that even though Kate Brown, obviously a liberal, but if she will come to the offices and come to the chambers, you can work with that. If you can have a dialogue with a sitting governor, you got possibility of getting some good things done.
Yeah, and so far she's been true to her word insofar as we're concerned.
That's wonderful. What's her position on immigration?
Oh, that I don't know, but she, is obviously a Portland Democrat, and she's known as being very liberal on a lot of issues.
All right. Now, she's settling down, and I get all of that. Do you sense, Scott, that she has any personal issue that she's very concerned about, that she'd like to see go through, that would be maybe outside the box where former Governor Kitzhaber was?
They actually align pretty closely on most of the issues, including the environment, and she's been a big proponent of equal rights for lesbians and gays, and a lot's been made of that, but Kitzhaber was too. So policy-wise, there's not a whole lot of difference. I mean, it's almost meet the new boss, same as the old boss in that sense.
Yeah. There's been a little bit of discussion on her position relative to the death penalty, that she's probably, I mean, you can help me on this. Is she leaving in place former Governor Kitzhaber's stay on that issue?
She isn't ruling out the possibility of doing executions. And I ultimately think the way to go on that whole issue, the death penalty was decided by voters, but that was a long time ago. And since then, you've had a lot of new people move into the state, and you've had a lot of younger people who weren't eligible to vote who are eligible to vote now. So I would submit that the electorate is different than it was back then, and that if voters had to vote on it again, they might vote differently than they did last time.
Yeah. Back to the subpoena, I understand that there are some former staffers named in this. I don't know if the tentacles of this reach into any of the agencies, but this could be quite stifling. I mean, it's possible this thing could rear its ugly head right in the middle of the session and mess things up.
Well, and like I said before, none of this is going away anytime soon. The fact that he's resigned his position as governor doesn't mean that any of these investigations are going to stop, and some of them appear to be picking up steam in a lot of ways. So they're looking here, they're looking there, and there's some controversies now about they're trying to sue to stop the release of different records and emails. And his girlfriend, Sylvia Hayes, her defense for doing that is that she doesn't want to incriminate herself. Right. So she's invoking her Fifth Amendment right. Say, I won't release these records because I might incriminate myself. And that looks very bad. Yeah.
Will Governor Brown possibly reconsider the way the Ethics Commission is put together, or the Ethics Committee is put together, which is pretty much an appointment of the governor? Do you think she may set that aside and find another way to make it a little bit more accountable?
There's been some different proposed legislation. My friend, Representative Julie Parrish from West Lynn, has proposed some bills that would tighten our ethics guidelines. And I know that the budget for the Ethics Commission came up in one of the committees that my boss was on earlier this week. And that's one of the things that we're looking at is, okay, well, what exactly does this body do? And what are the ways in which it can be improved? Because it's a complaint-driven process right now. So the burden is essentially on the average citizen who's working for a living to file a complaint when they suspect that something's going on. And so there are definitely ways that that process can be better.
All right, one last question, and it just seems to me that as this thing progresses back to the low carbon fuel bill, politically, this is total political now, that if the Democrat-controlled House and Senate go ahead and pass this, it becomes one of the greatest campaign tools given to the Republicans. Can they afford to do this?
They've gone all in on it. and it's already passed through the Senate on a party line vote. Senator Betsy Johnson is a Democrat, and she voted against it. And it was in committee over on the House side and passed out on a party line vote. So this thing's on a fast track to pass the House on a floor vote and go to the desk of Governor Brown for her signature.
All right. If it's named in a subpoena, doesn't that stifle it? I mean, can the governor sign it if it's subpoenaed information? Can they mess with evidence?
Well, it appears that they're on track to do all of those things. And we've been raising these objections every step of the way. And even the transportation package, like I said, there are definite needs in this state, infrastructure needs all over this state. And the Democrats need bipartisan support in order to pass it. They don't have the votes in their own caucuses to pass a gas tax and transportation funding package. And so, like I said, we've made very clear from the beginning, the House and Senate Republicans, that if you pass low carbon fuel standards, it's going to compromise the ability to pass a transportation package. And that's doing a huge disservice, the fact that they're insisting on low carbon fuel standards and compromising that. It does a huge disservice to everybody in the state.
Well, Scott, thanks for your time and being the hawk up over the R. We really appreciate you being with us and look forward to more times together. Best to you, my friends. Our prayers are with you. I can't imagine this session. It's unlike anything ever experienced in the state of Oregon. And I think you'll glad to see June and July come around pretty quick.
Well, I'll probably be down there visiting family by the time this is all done.
All right. Well, we'll get you in the studio. Thanks, my friend. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Barry.
All right. Scott Jorgensen live from Salem there at the Capitol. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Welcome back. Delighted to have some special guests in the studio with us today. And Richard Richmond's with us today. He's the founder of the Least of These Ministries, and he's brought with him a very special guest. And I'm going to let you introduce the guest. Rich, nice to see you, by the way.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, and thanks for what you do. And introduce our guest to us today.
Well, it's sure my pleasure this morning to introduce my friend and co-worker, Vitaly Dudukaloff. He lives in a little village, Plasiska, about 30 kilometers south of Kiev, and he pastors a church in Kiev. He works for us, the Least of These, and he also works for Samaritan's Purse.
Wow.
My friend Vitaly Dudukaloff.
Nice to have you with us.
Nice
Welcome.
to be here with you.
How long are you in the States for?
I'm here for almost 1 month.
Okay.
First 3 weeks I'm going to spend here with my friends, visiting them in Oregon. And for the last week I will be going to Dallas, Texas for a conference that Samaritan's Purse is doing for domestic part of Operation Christmas Child.
Good for you. Well, good for you. Well, first of all, tell us about the Least of These ministry and how you're involved.
The Least of This ministry is dedicated to bring the gospel to children in Ukraine, mainly to orphans and children from poor areas and villages. And originally, for last 16 years, we were doing our ministry in Crimea, visiting kids in orphanages and really poor places, sharing joy of the gospel with them, doing programs for them with puppets, with skits, with songs, games, and most necessarily, of course, we share the gospel with them and pray with children at the end.
How's the response been?
The response was so great. Because these children, they live in quite rural areas, and they do not get to see much of so-called civilization, concerts, groups coming to them, circus, or anything like this. When we come as a Christian group, first they are a little suspicious, like, okay, Christians doing program for us, what are you going to tell us? Okay, just see us for the first time and see if you like it, and we'll see how it is going to progress. And people, after watching us for first 20 minutes they fall in love with what we are doing, and at the end we tell them about Jesus. They listen because they already love the program.
Sure.
And at the end we have made decision in our team that no matter where we are at, if either it is Christian or children from Christian families or Muslim families, we're still going to do a prayer at the end and ask for forgiveness. And we've made this our main decision, and we're praying at the end, and people still invite us, say, please come again. This was so wonderful.
Rich, before I get too far into this, how can people work with you and help you and get involved? This is wonderful. You know?
Well, we have a website. It's the least of these, just spelled out, .org.
Okay.
And you can go on there. We used to take teams American teams to help in the ministry, but because of the situation now with the war in Ukraine and Russia taking over Crimea, we don't do that the last few years. But if they want to help sponsor, and I might say this, our bylaws of our 501c3 says that no Russian staff, or no American staff, excuse me, can receive a salary. So even though my wife and I are full-time, God has blessed us with some outside income, we don't take a staff. So when people go online and give money to the least of these, that money goes to Ukraine.
All right.
I think we had 2.5% administrative costs last year in our tax credit.
Well, bless you guys. That's wonderful. All right. The least of these, all one word, .org. theleastofthese.org. And if the Lord's kind of tugging on your heart to get involved, go to that website and get involved. I want to come back to tell us what the feeling, the atmosphere in Ukraine right now. Give us an update.
It's hard to describe everything what is going on in our hearts. Of course, the last year since the protests took place in the central square of capital city Kiev in Ukraine, since that churches and people are all disturbed about how is going to be the future of Ukraine. And we understood that for the last 20 years, since Ukraine had gained its independence from Soviet Union, not much things had changed. We have inherited old Soviet Union system in our government that is corrupted from the top down, and people finally got tired of this. And so a year ago, protesters came out to the central square in Kiev saying, no corruption, no stealing, no lying. We want to live free life with more opportunities. And church was a little bit puzzled about this, because
could they believe it?
Yeah.
Yes.
First thing, the church that used to live in Soviet Union time was a survivor. They had to live underground, not connected with any state institutions or anything to do with the government. And here for 20 years, the church continued to run this way, live this way, without being involved actively in society. And so now when we see these problems are happening, and people came out on the square saying, no lying, no stealing, no corruption, we thought like, okay, where is the church's place at this?
Yeah.
People are asking for righteous things, and blessed are those who are hunger and thirst after righteousness, they will be filled. And we were a little bit ashamed, let me say, as a church, that unbeliever people came out asking for righteous things, and the church was behind them. So it started like this.
Well, they're afraid, right?
Of course, yeah. But now, what is happening? Church is waking up, thinking about how we can bring Christian standards to society.
Is there an underground revival going on in Ukraine? Would you say that?
I can say that people are still interested in the gospel, hearing the gospel, coming to the Lord, coming to church. But the church now sees its new mission, besides just preaching the gospel, to show life standards, new lifestyles, model, like behavior model, how to do and act in the society, and especially in the war like this, or like what we're having right now. So the church is playing right now a key role in doing things like this. We see now more believers coming to higher authorities in politics, which we were afraid probably for previous years, because politics is a dirty thing.
No.
How a believer can go there?
Sounds like America.
It's dirty because believers didn't come there and didn't do their job well.
Yeah.
But for the last year, our speaker in the parliament was a believer. Christian, dedicated minister of God.
Wonderful man.
And what he did, he kept the country together. He had made certain very important decisions, forcing Parliament, making certain, passing certain laws that comply with Christian standards. And at the end of his office, when the new government was elected and he had to step down from his position, he just said, "I've done my job, thank you, I go," which is strange because previously Speaker of the Parliament liked to stay in this position because of his authority and corruption that he could use for his benefit, where this person stepped down, and as he was walking down the aisle in the Parliament, everybody stood up and clapped hands to him, said, "Good job, good job."
What are your greatest needs and why are you here?
The greatest needs right now in Ukraine and the church is to transfer God's standards into society. That's what I would say. I'm here because I work with Samaritan's Purse. That's my primary purpose here. And Samaritan's Purse is doing wonderful ministry among children in Ukraine and all other countries, collecting almost 10 million shoebox gifts from all over the world and sending them to needy countries.
10 million to Ukraine?
Okay. It's globally from different donor countries like Britain, Germany, Australia, and America. About 10 million shoe boxes, and sending them all over the other countries to preach that the church could use these boxes to bring joy of Christmas to children and tell them about Jesus.
So your greatest need, how can we help you?
The greatest need is bring us teachers, specialists in different areas of society that are Christian-based people, with Christian faith, to bring them to Ukraine and tell us how to utilize your faith in the areas of your job, of your responsibility in society. This is our greatest need. Recently, just this November, we had a convention in Kiev, and certain people came from America, like chaplains, lawyers, family teachers, doctors of different areas, and Christian people, and told us how Christian faith can be implemented in the areas of our responsibilities. So, in the beginning of the 90s, when missionaries came to Ukraine preaching the gospel, it was revival. New churches were started, but that was it. Churches didn't go further than that. We remained in our four walls, but we need people that teach us, okay, now step out. Do a better job of living Christian life in society.
You're chomping at the bit here, Rich.
At this conference that they put on, they brought an attorney that teaches law, actually teaches law right now with John Ashcroft, and he was in DOJ, Department of Justice, and his job for 2 years was to find out if it was constitutional legal to do so Christian schools could have the right to funds and all of this. Under the Bush administration. He was there and he talked in this conference in many sessions about how Ukraine could redo their constitution, that a country without law, without constitution, invites corruption. It's just amazing things. You can't imagine what's the transformation that has happened in this last year since Maidan. It's just amazing.
You know, I wish I had you for about a week. I want to learn a lot from you. Tell me about your own story. How did you become a Christian?
I was studying in agriculture college near Moscow, in Russia.
Did you talk to Polina here?
Yes, I talked to her. Yes. And so I'm ethnical Russian, and I lived in Russia for a while, and I studied there. And it was the end of '90s. That's when the doors opened out for many things from West to come into Soviet Union. And my problem in life at that time was, how can I improve myself? Because I lived with very low self-esteem. The guy in the class that he's like the last one there. Just nobody's interested in him. He's nobody there. So that was me, and so I thought I need to improve myself as a person. I need to grow somehow. I need to become up to certain standards in society. So that was my first priority, my thought at that time. And as I was interested in this, new literature began to come. Self-improvement, different Eastern philosophies, astrology, and other things that kind of like should serve you to become a better person,
right.
so-called. So I was involved with that, and it was helping me for a while, but not as much as I was expected to help me. And at that time, it was 1993, a few girls from our class, from our group, went to church somewhere. They came back. We didn't know where they were going, but they came back and we see there is something different about them. Their eyes are burning, burning. They're happy. They quit swearing, they quit drinking, they quit doing other things. They are so happy all the time, saying Jesus, hallelujah. It's for us like, what? Okay, in Russian culture, going to Orthodox church, usually it is grandmas who already start thinking about, okay, what is after death? That's kind of like the culture there. Young people usually don't go to church there. And for us to see these girls going to church, coming back different, it was a real thing. So we decided to come and ask them a few questions. We came to their room, they began to tell us about God and everything. I didn't say anything, I just was listening. And as they were going through their story about Jesus, I was thinking, okay, you know, it sounds good. Look like have they changed? I'm thinking about changes in my life. So alongside with things I'm practicing in my life, I will also believe in God. And at that point, when I thought about this, later on I realized it was the voice of God. The thought comes to my mind, okay, Vitaly, if you want to continue doing all these things and try to help yourself, God is not going to involve in this. But if you want God to help you and change your life, leave all things away, and He's going to change you. It took me 2 weeks to fight this thought. And after these 2 weeks, I went to church. They invited me to church. I decided, okay, I'll go and see what it is. There was a preaching. I was shocked how friendly people in the church are, how they were hugging each other and just saying hello, just with such sincere love for each other. Okay, coming from Soviet Union, whereas like this, you understand me. So I was shocked, and I was convinced that I need to come to God. And that night I prayed. I came the same evening to my grandfather's home for weekends. He lived not far from there. And he looked at me and he said, Vitaly, why are you looking at me so strangely? My eyes probably were burning like the eyes of those girls. And I said, I was afraid to tell him I went to church. So I said, like, just everything's good, Grandpa, you know, everything's fine. It's spring, you know, life is good. But a few weeks later, my friends in the dorm where I lived, they admitted, yes, Vitaly, you have changed. So my dream came true because I came to God.
What a wonderful story.
Yeah.
What a wonderful story. Well, our prayers are with you. I want to say to our viewers and listeners, if you're feeling the tug to learn more about this, you can go to The Least of These, one long word, theleastofthese.org, and find out more information. Rich, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
letting us share our heart.
Yeah.
Is he around or speaking, or are you just moving through?
We're just really moving through.
Moving through, okay.
Yes.
I just, you know, you said something, Vitaly, you just one more time, and I spill over a couple of seconds here. Your greatest need is for teachers and educators and
with Christian faith in their heart, and standards, or biblical standards.
What an incredible opportunity.
And prayer.
And prayer, of course, yes. Yeah. But to help change this culture and society.
Exactly.
I know you're frustrated that the church isn't out in the street more evangelizing, so to speak. But is it because they just don't have the faith? Are they afraid of some kind of relapse or persecution from what they've been living under?
I don't think so. No, they just don't probably see the opportunity that is there.
Okay.
Yes. The life is limited to church, gospel, and that's it. But people in the churches, they continue to bribe, you know, officials if it's necessary, if they want to solve their problems.
I see.
And they don't see a problem with that.
Right.
They're okay if their children go to school and study Darwin theory.
Okay.
And
here you come along, a new generation of integrity, honesty. Let's keep it totally biblical.
Yes.
So you need those kind of support people to come alongside of you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for having us.
And again, theleastofthese.org. And I just found out you're speaking Sunday night in Eagle Point.
Yes.
At the Eagle Point Community Bible Church, it looks like. Is that correct?
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning. There you go. Eagle Point Community Bible Church, Sunday morning at 10 a.m. All right. Go listen to them. Thanks, my friend. Blessings on you. Come again.
Thank you very much.
Rich.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Welcome back, and I have in the studio with us today this guy. His name is Steve Johnson.
Hey, good to be back.
Thanks, Steve, for joining us. And I just wanted to take a few moments and give our listeners and viewers an update of what happened at the NRB. And Steve, you are on top of these issues as well. And I think it's very important that we share with you some things that are on the horizon and some that have already taken place. But first of all, let me say to our viewers and listeners, from the deepest part of our hearts, thank you for your partnership with theDove. The new computer has been ordered. In fact, we've been given a delivery date of March 27th, which probably means from there we will have to, several days and maybe even a couple of weeks of learning, And you folks are the greatest. You helped us with the funds to raise that and get it going. Yeah. And so really this award that I brought back from Nashville there at the National Religious Broadcasters Annual Conference is an award that, it's to theDove for being the television station of the year, low power. But it really is something that belongs to all of our viewers and listeners as well. You folks are the best, and believe me, theDove is on a national map. People know who we are, know what we're doing. They see the difference in the programming lineup that we're doing. We're certainly not a big network by any means, but this award is recognition for a standard of broadcast excellence and creativity, innovation, and you're a big part of that, Steve. But when I met all the committee members, I have met a few here and there, but I met all the committee members, and then I realized the variety of stations and programming and various shows that are out there that they could have picked from, or considered for theDove to be awarded the Station of the Year. There's two awards in that category: low power, and then what they call full power. And now I got to say this, that the word low power, term LP, really means nothing, because there are some low power stations out there that are just as powerful as a full power station. This is a classification that the FCC created for certain frequency ranges and things like that, and we are in that category. So, in fact, there are more low power television stations in the country than there are high power. Well,
and we even know of a network that's just made up of a lot of low power stations that actually have more of a coverage than what a full power station might have.
In fact, it's possible. In fact, I know of cases where a low power station is serving a community that a main power or full power, what's the term I'm looking for, high power station is, and our full power station is. And I've seen some full power stations I've seen low power station as high as 15,000 watts of power, which is sizable in television talk, which is in some cases bigger than what they would call a full power station. And yet we've seen some full power stations that have the designation of Class A that are only 50 watts of power. So it has nothing to do with the actual power of the wattage of the station. It's the classification that the FCC has given to our frequency range. And so to win this award again is very, very significant, and it is a national award. And so please forgive me, I don't want to be tooting our horn here. That's not it. It's just that it's a recognition of what's going on here at theDove. And you folks who help us and support us, you're a big part of that.
Yep.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Stephen, you bring it up on the news and we've been watching. Yesterday was a huge day in the United States, significant day as it relates to the internet. And the FCC, by their own vote within the commission of the FCC, voted for what they call the Internet Net Neutrality Bill. Right. And the only thing I can tell you to our viewers and listeners, there's nothing neutral about it at all. Now the question is, here's the question then that is now in place that is going to be very significant. Will the Congress exercise their oversight responsibility on the FCC for passing this policy?
There's the question. Yeah.
It's not a law, it's a policy at this point. And the way we're set up in checks and balances in the United States, that the oversight of the Congress on all of the federal agencies. Well, what the FCC did yesterday was the FCC's equivalent to an executive order that the president's now, his legacy will be, he's been the most out-of-bounds president in the history of the United States by literally governing through an executive order and bypassing Congress. Yeah. Well, the FCC basically did that yesterday with the Net Neutrality Bill. Now the question is, will this actually become the law of the land, or will Congress exercise their responsibility and step in and say no? So here's what's happened, and the reason I want to bring this up to you, our viewers and listeners. If this thing sees the light of day, it has major significance on all of us. First of all, it's taken the internet and made it a utility. They have branded the internet like a federally controlled utility.
Mm-hmm. Like electric companies and
anything
all
else.
Of those, yeah.
Now, let me also say that what happened yesterday is taken the internet in the United States and put it in the same internet category that you would see in Russia, you would see in China, or any other country that wants, that's socialistic, that wants to control what happens on that. So, by the FCC voting for the net neutrality, you have taken the internet and you've turned it into a utility. Now, out of this comes several significant things. One is all commerce on the internet now could be taxed. Can you imagine just what that means alone?
Right.
If you are buying and selling through the internet, that exchange most likely will be taxed, which becomes a huge revenue source for the United States. And secondly is it now becomes a utility that the government can control with political correctness. Now think of it this way, folks. They politically corrected education, gender neutrality. They have the hate speech, all the things that, and all the funniness that's going on with education, what they're teaching, what they're not teaching. And then the second thing that the government did was politically corrected the military. You got gender neutrality in the military. You have don't ask, don't tell. You got all of this stuff going on where these people who have given their lives and these generals who've given their careers to serve the country and make sure that we're safe, they're leaving because they just don't want to serve under this kind of nonsense. And now the government wants to take political correctness to the internet. And the only way they can do that is to take it out of the control of public service and put it in the control of a utility. And by doing that, then they can control what's on there. Not only can tax what's on there, they can control the content that's on there. And guess what's coming? An infringement upon our First Amendment rights. Every Christian website in the world is subject, well, I should say in the United States, let me put it that way. Every Christian website in the United States is and will be subject to what they're calling net neutrality, political correctness. In other words, if you wanted to talk about same-sex marriages, you wanted to talk about abortion, you wanted to talk about all of these things that we have available to us in free speech, is now subject to political correctness under the website, and you could be fined. And that's the biggest argument that we broadcasters have, because we are all streaming through the internet. We have on our website, you can listen to the Dove radio and watch the Dove TV. Yep. So that's what happened yesterday, folks. And I'm telling you, this is as serious as a heart attack. You say, what do we do? Well, I think what we're sensing at this point, you need to let your representatives know, your U.S. senators and U.S. congresspeople know that you want Congress to step in through oversight and stop it. They have to do this. This is so big, and it is the nose of the camel under the tent, so to speak, for the government to come in, and it's its first potential legal opportunity to control free speech. Can you imagine that?
We've seen it in other countries. Yeah.
Yeah, so if your pastor gets up and preaches a sermon on I'll just use the hottest button out there, same-sex marriages. They post that on your website. And political correctness now, because it's going to regulate a utility, that church can be fined.
And also that deals with a lot of the content that we have on the Dove TV too.
A ton.
Yeah.
And this is where this is going to go. And I was in the room when they came in at the executive meeting there at the NRB, when they came in and announced what was about to take place in the vote yesterday. And you could have dropped a pin in that room and heard it on carpet. It was dead quiet, because we all realized that now the camel's nose is under the tent for First Amendment infringement. And the basic first attack will be against the Christian message. And I've said this, I don't know how long, on the Dove. If they get our microphone, they're going to get your pulpit. And this is a way to get the microphone and the pulpit at the same time, by controlling what is released through the internet. And if it's regulated as a utility, what in the world are we going to do about this? So I want to give you a heads up on it. And I would never come to you with the seriousness of this to scare anybody. That's not my point. My point is, I think we need to wake up what's coming off here. And you can complain and gripe all day long, and you can point fingers and get mad at people. You can do that all day long. It's beyond that. You have to take action. And the action is, I think you ought to be calling your congressman and writing letters and your senators and let them know that you want Congress to step in and stop what the FCC passed yesterday. So, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, we can wrap up some of those.
We got to take a break here.
Yeah.
Come back. Let me take a quick break. We'll come right back. I have one other thing to share with you that is very, very equally as serious that's coming at us, and I'll share that with you in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back, and just a little bit of an update of some of the things that I was learning and involved with at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention this week in Nashville, where the Dove received Television Station of the Year again, LPTV Station of the Year again, and we are really grateful for that. And I have to tell you, recognized by, I was in the room with some station owners and managers that were big markets. I mean, you know, so for the Dove to come out with the top award was pretty significant. Anyway, we're talking about a couple of things that we learned. One was the net neutrality action of the FCC yesterday, Steve, and I don't know, you have any thoughts on it? Because you've been watching it slowly too.
Well, what I've been seeing happening is the view that you mentioned, as well as those who have commented on it. And these are people who are saying, well, what this does is it allows a level playing field, because I'm a small business and all my bandwidth is being eaten up by these larger corporations, and they have high speed and I can't do that, so my website suffers. It's kind of a very small cosmic view of it all, which, if that's how they can get it passed, you know, that's the argument that they would use. But as you said, the issue is much bigger than that, to one of more socialism of the internet, and how the government can control it through taxation. And what better way of controlling something than doing that? I mean, we've seen it with Obamacare, which is, you know, turning into that too. So I don't think that that other issue, the one that you're mentioning, has really been raised. And what's interesting is Tom Wheeler, the FCC chairman, refused to talk before Congress when they asked him, please, we need to have a hearing on this, and he refused to do it. I had a few people coming up to me saying, how can somebody refuse a request by Congress, especially somebody who's in a top leadership position, the head of the FCC? Well, I think that should sound some alarms right there to say, what is he willing not to talk about? What is he hiding that isn't allowed to become a part of this discussion before the vote? And I think that has some serious ramifications with, you might say, a hijacking of our First Amendment rights that we'll be seeing happening.
You know, that's well said, Stephen. You're spot on with that, because it's like when Commissioner Wheeler would not come to Congress and testify, which is really part of his responsibility.
Sure.
It's like saying to your boss, you know, forget it. I don't want to meet with you. I'm just going to do what I want to do.
Well, can you imagine John Kerry as Secretary of State saying, I won't talk to Congress? The head of the FBI saying, forget it. No, you want to talk to me, I don't want to talk to you. I mean, this is like an unconscionable matter. That should send up some alarms right there.
We're moving into something that is so serious that I think in the long run, if our elected officials don't step in and take control of a rogue administration, that we're heading towards some kind of a civil unrest that we all don't want. And but this hijacking of the internet yesterday, I'm telling you folks, believe me, the impact of this is yet to be seen and felt.
Right.
But there is a window here for Congress to be responsible and step in and say to the FCC, no, you didn't come to the hearing. You violated the process. No, we're going to shut this whole decision down, and they can do that if they will. Question if they will. There's one other thing, and I only have about 2 minutes left to just kind of plug this in and tell you what's coming that we're going to be talking about a lot. The Dove TV, is, again, an LPTV, is a classification within the airways that was designated by the FCC and Congress for the communities that have access to the free airways. And that's the short version of it. What is now being proposed by the FCC is this, and the best way I can do it is put it into a layman's term. I don't want to get real technical. Imagine yourself owning 10 acres of beachfront property with a beautiful view and rocks and sandy beaches and all of that stuff. And your county comes in and condemns your property and takes it from you and sells it to a corporation that's going to build a resort on it. That's what's happening with us LPTV license holders. They want to take all of our licenses away and sell it to Google and Microsoft and Apple and all of these big, large carriers, bandwidth users out there.
Who will pay big bucks.
Who will pay big bucks for it. And yet, they are saying they don't need it. But Congress is saying, after encouraging communities to take on these licenses, and we took ours, and we were dead serious. We did exactly what we were given the right to do. They are threatening to take it away with no compensation. Now, folks, this isn't something maybe 10 years from now. This is on our doorstep this year. And I met with some key people on this issue. So in the very few weeks ahead, you're going to be asked to get involved in this as viewers to respond. Not just the Dove, across the country. We're going to get involved in this issue, so be a heads up. Can you imagine all the things that we've done with the Dove TV, and then all of a sudden the government comes in and takes it away without compensation? This isn't a possibility. This isn't, well, this is a conspiracy, or this may happen or may not happen. It is on our doorstep. The legislation has been drawn up. The FCC is about ready to do to LPTVs what they did to the internet, and it's on us today. So I'm giving you that heads up. Be in prayer. Be praying for wisdom. I'm working with coalitions and groups and attorneys, but be in prayer that God gives us favor and we push this thing back. So we'll talk more about it in the future. So thank you for your support. Thank you for standing with us. Thank you for your prayers. And thank you for being a part of something very unique here at the Dove. We can't do it without you. So we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at the Dove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. and you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.